Yo, what is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka J Phoenix. This is going to be your weekly astrology horoscope, the cosmic convergence for Wednesday, September 11th through Tuesday, September 17th of 2024. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. Hopefully, you guys are having a wonderful week. And we have a good bit to talk about, of course, in this week's astrological horoscope. I know I didn't do one last week. I kind of broke it up into like a couple of days chunks. So I appreciate y'all being patient with me, but we are back to our regular scheduled programming. Hopefully I can talk. In any event, well, what do we have going on this week? Well, we do have a first quarter moon, right? We do have Mercury leaving shadow. So it's moving a lot faster. It's going to be leaving shadow. It's going to be feeling a lot better in Virgo, of course, outside of its shadow. And not quite getting to full speed, but getting up to full speed, right? We're going to see a couple other aspects, of course. Venus is going to trine Jupiter. We actually get a nice grand Earth trine this week, which is actually pretty cool. Or not Earth trine, air trine, excuse me. Venus being a Libra, Jupiter being a Gemini, and the moon being an Aquarius. So we will see a nice trine with that. But this week culminates into the full moon lunar eclipse that will be happening in Pisces. It's not happening in Aries because the North Node is really close. It's getting closer and closer to that 0 point, the Pisces-Aries cusp. The North Node is close enough to that 0 point that a full moon in Pisces and the later degrees of Pisces will yield a partial lunar eclipse. So definitely a big week. I think it's going to be a week of, I feel like it's a week that's kind of sandwiched between, that first quarter moon and that lunar eclipse. And then you have all of the stuff in between. So it's a very interesting week from that aspect because there's a couple days where it's really just the moon making aspects. And then you'll have the big lunations, of course, with the first quarter moon and then the full moon, right? And so it's definitely interesting. Like the moon moves rather quickly, coming off of that new moon, of course, that we had back in Virgo. So, the way I described this week was Act 2, a split decision. Now, last week initially was supposed to be a week of like a massive battle between the heroes of our journey of this story, and they're fighting off against another dragon, but they're all on the same team. This week, we're going to actually see some interesting things come up where we are kind of making a decision on which way we are going to go. And this has everything to do with that full moon lunar eclipse, because there's an element here of separation, but simultaneously coming together. What I like about this particular image is that it does show our main character here, but he's almost sort of like looking into the future, right? Or he's having a dream. And I think it's interesting because initially when I was creating this, I was like, I wanted the hero to be on one side and this other opposing force on the other side of a cliff. But then it gave me this image. And I'm like, you know what? That's actually a more accurate representation of what's going on here. Because this is dealing with Piscean energy, because this is dealing with Neptune, because Neptune will be in close proximity to this full moon, of course. This is really more so of like a subconscious thing, a collective conscious thing, and it does take on a dreamlike aspect. So it's as if this individual right here is looking into the future, and there are some possibilities here. He can continue to grow his hair out, and his dragon is green or something like that, right? Looks like he has like a spear here. But then in this side, he looks a little bit different. He looks a little bit more rogue, right? His hair is a little bit darker, although it's brown with like some black here. Of course, that could be just shadow, but it's a little bit more rogue. And the dragon, his friend, is no longer green. He's red. Or for all we know, he could have ditched the green dragon and grabbed the red dragon instead. So this is sort of like a moment here where we are having to make a decision, and it does feel like a split decision of what way are we going to go? Are we going to go left? Are we going to go right? Are we going to choose this group? Are we going to choose that group? I think this is going to be a week that does, and there are many moments like this that happen, but I think since this one is happening with a full moon lunar eclipse, and the energy of this eclipse will be with us until, this energy is cut off, that you will see over the next month or so until we get to the next full moon when this energy gets technically cut off, but you could say that the energy will kind of remain until we get to the new moon in Pisces and even the next full moon. So whenever you get full moons, the energy gets cut off in bits and pieces. You get the first cutoff, which is the next full moon. You get the second cutoff of the energy, which is going to be the new moon in that sign. And then you get the final cutoff of that energy where it fully renews when you get to the next full moon in that sign. So it takes a full year for these energies to technically be cut off. And because this is an eclipse, the energy lasts even longer, and it's much more potent. So the decisions that we make in and around this eclipse are going to last us quite a while, definitely for at least a year, but they're going to last us for a while. So the different factions that people pick, the sides that people pick, whether they are actual factions or whether they are within themselves, on how they are going to express themselves going forward. Are they going to be one side, the long hair and the green dragon, or be the other side, which looks a little bit more rogue with the red dragon? Is either side more correct than the other? I think that is a decision that only you can make. So, without further ado, of course, we are going to hop into the transits. As soon as I get everything going here, we will hop right into it. So, let me go ahead and switch this to the Decan ruler, because that's what I like to have it on. So, bam, here we are. So, here we go. September 11. 9/11. We have the first quarter square of the moon to the sun here at 19 degrees. This happens really early in the morning on Wednesday. So the moon will mostly, it'll pretty much just spend the rest of the day in Sag, and then it will enter into Capricorn later on in the day. So this first day, you're really going to see mostly the moon making some aspects. Of course, Mercury will make some aspects as well. But we do have this first quarter moon. Now, whenever the moon is in Sagittarius, like I said, we are reacting and responding in a more Sag-like way. So when it comes to our beliefs, wherever it comes to like the big picture of things, the happy-go-lucky energy, mutable fire, right? So there's definitely an element of creativity here, but it's mutable, right? So it's, how can we adapt in these situations too? There's an element of that. It's reacting and responding more. Of course, the sun is in Virgo, which is definitely more so concerned about the reality of things and the facts. So with the moon in Sagittarius, though, this can be a tough square for anybody that is like more so identifying with their ideals or their beliefs, right? Not facts, but their beliefs. And beliefs aren't necessarily true. Like, you can believe that the sky is purple when it's actually blue. Of course, there are times where the sky could very well be purple, but maybe not in this exact moment. I can believe that my cat is red, but he's clearly not red, right? So that's the thing about this with this moon. Now, of course, we can see that this is actually going to be creating a bit of a mutable T-square, because this moon is going to be in square to the sun at the same time while it's opposing Jupiter. So we have a mutable T-square as well. So now you're adding the whole Jupiter element into things. Of course, Jupiter, which is the ruler of Sagittarius, right? So it's positing this moon. And now this moon is sort of like, well, fuck. Like, it's probably not doing the hottest right now. It's at +1. So it's not doing fantastic. It's like, it's doing okay, but it's not doing the best right here, So there's a bit of an uncomfortable edge with this. Of course, this Jupiter's wanting to expand on things, but it is in Gemini, so it definitely has to do so in smaller spaces, if you will, and it's much more mental. Whereas this moon in Sagittarius can be, I said, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and very idealistic and really wanting things and reacting to things and wanting things to be bigger and more worldly. And I think that's the other thing about Sagittarius is that it wants to be more worldly, and it also has to deal with foreign places and foreign people. But the fact of the matter is, the reality of it is, especially with the sun that's in square to this, is that the facts may not always line up with what we believe and what we feel is right, what we feel should be right. And that's the other part about Jupiter too, is that, like I said, Jupiter is a big, it's Garfield trying to fit into a very small box. Like, that's what Jupiter in Gemini is. It's Garfield trying to fit into this really small little box. And I mean, Garfield going to make it work. That don't mean it's going to be comfortable though, right? So there could be, the way that this could kind of play out is that, we could have these big thoughts and ideals with this Gemini energy, and we're trying to figure out a place to put this, but it's an element where it's like, how do we learn how to compartmentalize it? That's where the sun comes into play. How can we organize, these beliefs and these visions and these thoughts and these ideals? How can we learn how to compartmentalize them so we can actually make this work, instead of it just being a bunch of randomness? Yeah, sure, you may be inspired. Sure, you may be motivated. But if there's no organization to this, then it's just misplaced creativity that doesn't have a container or anything for it to manifest and make sense. That's the kind of one of the tricks with Virgo, is that even though it's mutable, it is Earth. So it's about taking that mutability and putting it into a container so it can actually manifest, right? So that is the third quarter. That is going to be that first quarter square with this moon to the sun opposing Jupiter. That pretty much breaks that down in a nutshell. Now, this moon is going to continue throughout the day. It's going to make a trine over to Chiron, which is nice. It's also going to square over to Neptune. So once again, we kind of get hit, with that energy kind of again, we start off the day with the first quarter part, but then we end the day where we get the challenge to Neptune, where it's like, this is sort of the opportunity of what pill are you going to take, even though you got all that information the first part of the day, and how to try and take those creative visions and passions, whatever like that, and how to compartmentalize them and focus them so it actually makes sense, so you can actually manifest something, so it's not just random and all over the place. It's like, you can't just throw gasoline on top of a car and expecting it to run. No, you actually have to put it in the engine, if you will, right? Yeah, you can't just throw it on the car and expect it to work. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work that way. Everything has like a system to it. But we get this challenge with that moon right here at the edge of Sagittarius, making a square over to Neptune, where it's going to be like, well, this is where you can like undo all of your progress for the day. Because then you can get kind of whipped up in the emotion of things, and Neptune is like kind of like the Wizard of Oz, saying like, oh, that's cool and dandy, but wouldn't you rather do it this way? This is like the cop out. This is trying to take the easy route, right? Now, what is going to be supporting us with this square of the moon to Neptune is the fact that we do have Mars in sextile to Mercury now here at 4 degrees. That's starting to come more into its fruition. Now, this does offer us a great opportunity that even if things feel, Mars in Cancer is not very comfortable, right? Mars, this is really more so like, I really don't feel like doing it. But Mercury is also coming with facts, and now it's on the degree that it retrograded. It retrograded at 4 degrees of Virgo, right? So this is it. We're revisiting, in many ways, you're revisiting where you were when Mercury was at this spot. So if you just think back to, I'll just go by week, and let me go forward by like a day. It retrograded at 4-4, and it's almost exact to that moment where we were looking at. So if you think back to the beginning of August, right, and where were you? You're revisiting this spot right now, right? But the difference, of course, is that Mars was here in Gemini with Jupiter. Whole different ball game. Pluto was in Aquarius. Whole different ball game, right? The Sun was here in Leo. Venus was here in Virgo. Whole different ball game, right? So let me get back to the moment where we were. It was like 7:40, I guess, right? So we're starting to see this come to its, well, it actually was a little bit later, right? Yeah, 7:40 at night. There we go. So we're seeing this nice little sextile here. Of course, my phone's ringing, so don't worry about that. I'm gonna just let that go because I'm making this video, right? But we're going to see that sextile here, and this is kind of the way that we get through it because, like I said, Mars in Cancer is like, I'll do it if I feel like it. But Mercury is like, well, here are the facts. Here's the reality of it. And here's what you've kind of learned over the last month. Now, with all that being considered, how are you going to move forward? So that's how we can kind of work through the discomfort of a moon in Sagittarius squaring this Neptune, where we may be given one side that looks like a beautiful, fun, exciting adventure, very fantastical, very magical seeming, but then all this energy here in Virgo, even though a lot of it is just these minor asteroids, but we do have Mercury here as well, sextiling to Mars, giving us an opportunity to take action even if we don't necessarily feel like it, but because we know it's the right thing to do. And the Venus, of course, is going to be here with Black Moon Lilith here in Libra, which is definitely going to bring about some interesting energies when it comes to our relationships, and a more enticing side of it. So I would say how this can play out in many different ways. This could play out in a way where, you know, say if you are single or whatever like that, and maybe there's someone that you're interested in, but they kind of remind you of many, like several people in the past that you dated. It didn't quite go that well, but it just looks enticing. Maybe you don't go for it. Or, God forbid, please do not cheat on your partners or spouses because it's not going to be great. The grass is not greener on the other side, so do not do it. Do not do it. Yes, the Mercury sextile Mars thing is the responsible thing to do. It's the hard thing to do, yes. But, you know, just because the going gets tough doesn't mean that you fold and try and do something that makes you feel better. It's not always about what makes you feel better. Sometimes you got to do the right thing. And I think that's really what this comes down to. I think now we live in a world where people just want to feel better instead of actually be better. That's two different things. Feeling and being are two different things, right? Feeling is Cancer. Being is Virgo. Just a little tidbit as far as that goes, right? So I think this Wednesday is going to be very, very important. Of course, this is 9/11, so the day is already a very emotionally charged day, at least here in the United States. So, of course, take that into consideration. But it is one of these moments where it can offer a lot of great growth and development for us spiritually, but we also have to learn that it's not going to be like this rose-tinted glasses, Wizard of Oz, just happy-go-lucky, Alice in Wonderland kind of deal, but it actually is going to require a little bit of work, you know, but it'll be worth it. I think we'll see that as the weeks and the months progress, that actually will be worth it too, right? But there is a callback to the beginning of August, now that Mercury is on the degree that it retrograded at. And technically when it sextiles Mars, it will be technically out of shadow because that's 4 degrees, 4 minutes, and this will be happening like around like 4:15, 4:16 or something like that. So that's September 11th. Now, as we move into Thursday, we're going to see that moon, of course, it's going to shift into Capricorn, right? We're going to see this Mercury, it's moving faster. By this point, it's already sextile Mars, but we're still going to kind of feel it going into the next day. And we're going to see, of course, this moon make the opposition over to Mars. Now, this is the way that we wake up into Thursday, is moon opposing Mars. At least here on the East Coast, that's the way that we're waking up. Now, this is an interesting one. There is a little bit of mutual reception here. Why? The moon rules Cancer and Mars exalts itself in Capricorn. So this is kind of like that moment where it's like if you can kind of get through Wednesday and you get to Thursday, you can kind of start to see it's like, okay, it was actually worth it for me to, not engage with that particular fantasy or to kind of, fight through that moment of discomfort because it will feel a little bit more worth it once you get to this moment. It may not necessarily feel like it, but it can feel a lot more worth it. It also helps that the moon is going to be enshrined to Mercury, which is, whenever I think of trines, I do think of a healing energy. I think of gifts. So there could be something nice can definitely come up here with that moon trine to Virgo, that moon trining over to Mercury in Virgo, right? So we have that going on. And then, of course, we will see Mercury exit its shadow on Thursday. So you made it through another Mercury retrograde. You know what I'm saying? So we made it through another Mercury retrograde. Now it's officially out of shadow, and it is now going into new territory. So we will see that happen. We also will see this moon square the nodes here at 6 degrees. That's early in the morning, and that is pretty much it for Thursday. There's nothing else happening exact aspect wise. Now, of course, we do have some building up energy. We do have the sun building up to an opposition with Neptune, and we have, of course, the full moon lunar eclipse building up. We have Venus building up to the opposition with Chiron as well. And we have Sun building up to a quincunx with Chiron. So we do have some building energies, but Thursday is going to be one of those days where it's like if you can make it through Wednesday and you wake up Thursday and you can be like, you know what, I can do this. Now, granted, the moon's still in Capricorn, so it's still not necessarily the most comfortable, but it can give us a great opportunity to really just see how strong we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's the thing about it. It's like you can get to Thursday and it's like, wow, I'm so much stronger than I give myself credit for. I fought that desire. I fought that urge. I made it through. I didn't take the easy route, and now I'm here, right? So that's pretty much Thursday. Like I said, this happens pretty early in the day. We'll see that moon conjunct Ceres, and then, of course, by the end of the night, we'll see it start getting closer to sextiling over to Saturn, but that's going to be more of a Friday the 13th. Now, we do have a Friday the 13th as well. So we do have a Friday the 13th. Now, I think it's interesting that for this Friday the 13th, we do have the moon and its detriment in Capricorn. So now we will see this moon make a sextile over to Saturn. Of course, now with the moon in Capricorn, we are reacting and responding to more Capricornian-like things. So structure, business, the way we build things, the way that we climb the mountain in our life, maturation, adulting. Yes, I said the word adulting. I know that phrase is they're trying to cancel. Oh, let's just agree to not say adulting. I'm going to say it adulting. We're responding more to those sort of things, right? Okay, so we're responding more to the harder shit right now. So this moon, of course, sextiling over to Saturn. Of course, now Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. So there is an opportunity that kind of opens up here where, maybe doing the thing that we don't necessarily feel like doing could yield some positive rewards and especially can help us to feel more fulfilled spiritually, So that's a nice thing. But like I said, this energy, you don't really feel it you're not going to feel it for too long because it's the moon and it moves very, very fast. Plus, this is happening early in the morning. So really, it's only going to be people in Europe that get this, and Asia and stuff will feel this energy a lot more. But those of us here on, in the Western Hemisphere probably won't be feeling this energy that much unless you're up on Thirsty Thursday and, doing all that stuff, because I know that's a thing. Right? So we'll see that moon make that sextile over to Saturn. We also will see the moon square Venus. So this is the way that we wake up on this day, is we wake up to a square. Now, this is certainly an interesting one because this can definitely give you the feeling that things aren't fair. Moon in Capricorn, you could definitely be more focused on finances, your legacy, purpose, career, your job, and then Venus over here in Libra, definitely focusing on relationships, but also the fairness of things. You can definitely feel like things are not fair on Friday. If you get to Friday and you feel like things aren't fair, maybe you feel like you're not getting paid enough or you're appreciated enough, know that this energy you're not really going to feel for too long, but you also don't necessarily want to put your foot in your mouth and jump the gun and say something that you don't want to that you don't mean, or if you don't have all the information on something, definitely don't jump the gun here as well, because you can definitely do that. This feeling is going to be temporary, or if it's not temporary, maybe it is bringing up something that is latent, that's kind of bubbling under the surface, but I would say the intensity of it is only going to be temporary. So I would say just kind of wait it out until the moon comes off of this square to Venus before you make any type of rash decisions or judgments or whatever like that. We have the full moon lunar eclipse is when we're going to make that split decision, if you will. Plus, this moon has to go over this Pluto still. So we will see it squared over to Venus. We are going to see it, and it's going to make, and that's the thing about this day on September the 13th, is that the moon is making multiple aspects, right? So it is already sextile Saturn, right? Now it is squaring Venus. Then it's going to make a quincunx over to Jupiter in Gemini. And then it's going to, so it's going to be a lot. And then it's going to trine the sun. And we do get, we did a nice little trine here to the sun. But then it's going to square Chiron, right? Here at 22 degrees. And then, finally, it trines Uranus. So, you can see how on Friday, emotionally, you're going to probably be a bit all over the place, right? The way that you get through this is by being an adult and realize, and just kind of, there's an element here where we do kind of have to throw dirt on it. I'm not saying to not feel your emotions. I'm not saying to suppress your emotions. What I am saying is that there's an element here where it's like we have to learn how to be a little bit more emotionally resilient, right? That's a good thing about the moon in Capricorn, is that it can teach us emotional resiliency, not suppression, but resiliency. So that's the thing about this. This moon is going to be hitting, it's going to be making an aspect to Pisces energy. It's going to be making an aspect then to Libra energy. Then it's going to be making an aspect over to this Gemini energy. Then it's going to be making an aspect over to Virgo energy. And then it's going to be making an aspect over to Aries energy. And then it's going to be making an aspect over to Taurus energy. That's a lot. That's a lot to happen in one day. We're talking one whole third of the zodiac that it's going to hit, plus Virgo, Libra. That's a lot for it to hit in one day. So have some grace on yourself on this Friday the 13th. Have fun with it, of course, but just know that it's going to be a bit of an emotional roller coaster. Just being flat out honest with you guys, right? Now, we're going to move, of course, into this Saturday, right? Where once again, it's going to be mostly the moon making aspects, but we do see the sun make an aspect finally, right? We do finally see the sun do something. This moon, of course, starting off is going to conjunct Pluto here in Capricorn at 29 degrees, right? Still in trine to Uranus, so we're going to feel that energy a little bit, but of course this happens early in the morning on Saturday, Friday going to Saturday, so once again, unless you're out partying and stuff like that, here in the States, you're not going to be awake to feel this energy, but if you're in Europe, if you're in Asia, you will feel this energy being a lot more if you're in Africa, right? So, but those of us on the Western Hemisphere, not as much. We're gonna wake up, and that moon's gonna be in Aqualand, which means now we get to be a little bit emotionally, detached. Which, especially after a potentially emotionally volatile day, such as Friday, the moon going to, of course, is probably going to be a nice little treat, especially considering the fact that this is the area that we're going to see a nice little trine. So, this moon's going to go here. It's going to go into Aquarius, and then it does make some quincunxes, right? It's going to actually quincunx this Mars. It's going to quincunx this Mercury as well. Those are the main two things that it does. So we'll see the awkward stare over to Mars. We're going to see the awkward stare over to Mercury. And this is going to be kind of like that weird thing where it's like, okay, now I'm reacting and responding more in an Aquarian way. There's this weird energy with Mars and Cancer. It's like, I don't know if I necessarily feel like doing this or acting this way or moving forward with this. And then you get to the quincunx to Mercury at 8 degrees, where it's going to be like, well, I don't really necessarily like that fact. I don't know if that doesn't like really jive with me and stuff like that. That's the whole thing with Virgo. Or like there are certain details that may come out, or maybe you feel like you need to clean up certain areas. It's like, I don't really like doing that either. Interesting thing about this day is that we do see that Sun and Virgo also make a quincunx over to Chiron. So Saturday is a bit of an awkward day, a day where you're probably going to want to just emotionally detach. This Sun here at 22 degrees making a quincunx to Chiron here at 22 degrees of Aries is definitely, if you don't feel like you're perfect. I mean, that's the thing about Virgo is that there's a perfectionism quality to it, and Chiron is the weird, quirky aspects of ourself that we may or may not embrace. But with the Moon in Aquarius, you're gonna probably just want to emotionally escape from it all and almost sort of just like detach in like a very odd way that doesn't really address the issues. If there is some issue that you maybe have with yourself, like especially like your personality, the way that you present yourself to the world, the way that you act and stuff, with that Sun in Virgo, that's going to be definitely very much so nitpicky. And then you have a Moon in Aquarius that's going to make you want to just escape from it. This can be a moment Saturday where I would say, spiritually bypass, emotionally bypass things, different facts that may come up, or this can be one of those weird moments where an aspect of our consciousness kind of splits because we don't want to address an issue, especially because it's Chiron. This can deal with traumas that are coming up, and maybe we don't want to necessarily deal with it. And with the Moon in Aquarius too, that does bring a quantum aspect to our emotions where we can start to feel emotions from the future and the past and shit. Because Saturn is a traditional ruler of Aquarius, but it's also Uranian. And when I think of Uranus, I think of wormholes and shit, especially time wormholes. This is where the whole time jumping thing happens, or the time traveling. So this could be like you maybe feeling emotion that you might have first felt, like however long, well, all emotions are that. All emotions are emotions that you first felt at one point at a different time, but it could trigger a memory. But then it's like, oh shit, I don't necessarily like that. So it's like, are you going to address it, or are you just going to kind of suppress it? So that's kind of a good way to look at Saturday. Are you going to address it? Or are you going to suppress it? You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind for this Saturday. That's pretty much it as far as Saturday goes. I think the positive thing here is that like if we can learn to integrate those quirkier aspects of ourselves with that Chiron and Aries. Like I said, the Chiron is the key to your superpowers. Like, it can be one of those things where it's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not perfect here, but you know what? I'm a work in progress. I embrace myself as such. And, the good thing about the Moon in Aquarius is about, like, feeling like you can emotionally connect to other people. You know what I'm saying? And there's like a level of empathy that can come with the Moon in Aquarius. But it definitely is much more air-like. It's not like Pisces or Cancer or even Scorpio. It's much more Aquarian. So it's much more solution-oriented. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's definitely much more humanitarian. Think like soup kitchens and shit like that. So that's kind of the nice thing about this is that like, you can definitely come up with some solutions here if you feel like you need to have some areas that you need to work on. And remember, no one's perfect. I think that's the one thing that we have to remind ourselves here is that no one's perfect. You're not perfect, but if there is something that you legitimately do want to work on, you actually are going to be there's the tools to do so. There are solutions to working on those things. So, like I said, are you going to address it or are you going to suppress it? That's pretty much Saturday, right? Now we shift into Sunday. Sunday is an interesting day. It's the day where the moon actually doesn't really make a ton of aspects to anything, besides some very minor ones like the semi-sextile over to Saturn. But Other than that, we don't really see the moon do too much today besides this nice little trine. Actually, no, the moon does a little bit more. Excuse me. It does. It's involved in the grand air trine, and then of course we have Chiron and the sun. So let's drill down and look at that. So we are going to see. And the other thing about this, of course, is that we are seeing Venus actually in trine to Jupiter as well. So as you can see, they are all going to be in trine to each other, this moon, this Jupiter, and this Venus. This is a wonderful moment. This is a nice little moment here. Now, the moon in Aquarius, like I said, it's a little bit more emotionally detached. Jupiter, sure, it's in detriment in Gemini, but Venus is strong. Venus is here in Libra. It's feeling a lot strong. It's feeling very strong. It's past the South Node. It's past Black Moon Lilith. Venus is feeling good, right? Probably the best that Venus has felt in a long time. Now it's involved in a grand air trine, even better. This can definitely be nice for just overall communication, connecting to other people, and especially if you can align your visions with the Jupiter and Gemini, then even better, even just more beautiful. This is like teamwork makes the dream work. This is really nice stuff here. It really is. This moon is also going to sextile Chiron, so even better. So if you can get through the day previous and accept yourself, there's an opportunity that opens up to where maybe that quirk or that superpower that you have turns out to really come in handy. Like it maybe comes really in handy. Like maybe you have like a gift that maybe you don't use very often. Like maybe one of your gifts is like public speaking, right? You don't do it too often because maybe you don't like public speaking, but you're good at it. Maybe an opportunity comes up where you just find yourself in a public speaking thing and you end up connecting with somebody that can link you to a great opportunity like a new job, or it can link you to like maybe you meet someone that you really like. Maybe you meet someone actually, through friends. So this actually can be a nice thing where maybe you meet your next romantic relationship through for like a friend group or something like that, like hanging out with friends. That's kind of the cool thing about this as well. The way that you do that is by being outgoing with that Jupiter and Gemini and not just be a homebody. You know what I'm saying? So if you're single and you're looking, I would say Sunday will probably be a good day. Like it's like go to brunch, right? You know what I'm saying? Like Sunday, like go to brunch. Even if you're dude, go to brunch. Yeah, you may meet the love of your life with this. And I would say that like out of a lot of the energy that we've been having lately when it comes to relationships, this right here looks like it's one of the most positive. Just in general. Sure, there are challenges within all relationships, right? No relationship is perfect. They all have their challenges, but a grand air trine with Venus past the South Node and Black Moon Lilith and Libra, making it over to Jupiter Moon, like it can be nice. I actually like that energy. So, but this is about being outgoing, not and feeling like instead of emotionally detaching, trying to like find like it's about that vibe. Aquarius is all about the vibe. It's literally like two waves on top of each other. So it's like it's a vibration, if you will. So it can be a great opportunity to really vibe with somebody or some people. We will see that moon make the sextile over to Chiron here at 22 degrees. And of course, this does create a bit of a yod because they are in sextile to each other and they are quincunx to the sun, which is at 23 degrees. Sure, it's not exact, but this does create a nice little yod. So Sunday does make for a rather powerful day with a grand earth trine and a yod at the same time. That's not an energy that you see very often, right? So I think this is kind of a nice thing because it's going to help us to, kind of ground a little bit, the possibility of what our day-to-day reality can look like or how things can shift in our lives and the way that we could, because Virgo is the alchemist. This is the way I see it. They're the alchemists. So it can be a great opportunity for us to kind of see how we can become the alchemist in our life and, yeah, things are a bit crazy and intense right now, but maybe it's not as bad as we think it is. Or maybe if it is bad, we have more power to change it than we realize. And I think that's what the revelations and the inspirations that can come here on this Sunday is realizing that we actually can change our situation if we really want to. We have to just choose to do so. There's power in our choice, right? So that is Sunday. I'm kind of rolling through this one, but this week is kind of interesting. Like, this week is kind of simple, but we can complicate it. This one thing I'm noticing as I'm doing this horoscope is that it's actually pretty simple and straightforward, but we can definitely complicate it, right? So as we continue to move this forward, we will see once again an aspect happening. A lot of the aspects that the moon has been making have been happening like early in the morning. So you'd really only feel it if you were in Europe or in Asia or Africa. So we will see, of course, this moon make the square over to Uranus here at 27 degrees. I'm not going to go too much into that just because, like I said, it's something that we're not going to really feel for too much. Now, the cool thing about it is that there is mutual reception here. The moon exalts in Taurus, Uranus rules Aquarius. So, like I said, even though this is a square, it can give us an opportunity to emotionally get on the same page as people that we think are weird or outside of our normal associative group, if you will. Maybe see a little bit more of the common human element between you and another individual or group of people. Or you can go the complete other route and be like, nah, screw them. Like, excuse me. You can go the complete other direction and be like, nah, I want to be able to see eye to eye, screw them, blah, 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 blah. No, you're in my... Like, you could go that route, but like I said, could give you an opportunity to kind of come to some sort of synthesis emotionally from a more Aquarian-like way. Now, we will see that moon shift into Pisces. We'll see it shift into Pisces, and of course, it is going to trine over to Mars on this day. This is also the day that we will see Venus come into its opposition with Chiron. And I really don't think this is a bad aspect. It can feel a little bit weird, obviously, whenever you have two planets in opposition to each other. But I really don't feel like this is going to be too bad. I think this is just the opportunity for, like I said, like when it comes to our relationships, the challenge here with Chiron and Aries is not getting overly caught up on how it's perceived to other people. You know, Aries is that first house. It rules the ascendant. It is the ascendant, so that's like the math, the way that people perceive you, and there's the Chiron there. So there could be this element, especially with the moon in Pisces, which is going to want us to, once again, kind of go a little bit, not detachment, but escapism, right? There could be this weird element here where it's like, you know what? I don't really like that thing about you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and then this moon is going to be trining over to Mars, which Mars is in Cancer, is not very comfortable. You definitely don't want to make like any rash decisions here and shit like that, and say shit that you don't actually mean and shit. But it could definitely be like that. You know, this can be the day where someone's weird little ticks, whatever like that, actually kind of maybe perturb you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I feel like pet peeves are probably gonna be a little bit more of a thing here on Monday. People are gonna be a little bit more annoyed by that. Doesn't help with the fact that the moon is about to oppose Mercury, you know, as well, and it's building up to a full moon lunar eclipse. But there is definitely this element here, which I think is beginning to actually call back to this moment, because, you know, I think this is sort of like a shifting point where it's like if you go too much into the victim mentality aspect of this, then you may find yourself on, and just for the purposes of this, I'm gonna say that the red dragon and this character on the right side is what happens when you feed much more into the victim aspect of it, and you see yourself more as a victim, and you allow your traumas and your pains to overtake you and overcome you and shape who you are. But then the other side, not that you don't have your fair share of pains and struggles, but you allow it to strengthen you instead of, harden your heart, if you will. And I think there's an element of that with this opposition with the Venus and Chiron, is that like we can find ourselves going one way or the other. And this is just the first little taste of it, because we're really going to see it more so with the full moon lunar eclipse, which we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that one for that particular horoscope. But of course, I am going to touch on it here. Um, like I said, we will see at the same time that this opposition is happening. We will see this moon in Pisces trine over to Mars, right? So even though that's positive, it's difficult because the moon is getting ready to conjunct Saturn. It's building up to a full moon lunar eclipse, and Mars is not happy in Cancer. So it really is about doing a thing that you don't feel like doing, but and, and also, it's about the relationships in many ways that we have with ourselves and other people, and whether or not we can acknowledge if we are acting from a place of pain and hurt, or if we're acting from a place of empowerment. I think that's really what this comes down to. Is like, are you acting from a place of empowerment and courage and bravery, or are you acting from a place of cowardice? Am I gonna lie? Cowardice, pain, hurt, and I think we all have times where we act from both places. But I think at this point, we have been given ample opportunity to acknowledge our hurt and the traumas and the pains and stuff like that, and not allow them to take us over. Now, like, and that may sound a little bit weird because I know everyone's healing process is different. Everyone heals in their own way. Everyone takes their own time with their healing. So I'm not saying that you're never going to have another opportunity to process your traumas and pains and the weird shit with the Chiron and, becoming mortal, if you will, because that's the thing about it. Chiron is, he was immortal, then he became mortal, and there's an element of how we may feel like that too in our lives too. That's the whole part with the Chiron thing here, where it's like we are infinite immortal beings, but we're temporarily in this human suit which is mortal, and then we're dealing with the whole psychology of that. And it's like, well, we're not immortal, but in this form, our spirit is infinite, and there's that whole thing too, right? So that's the whole weird thing about the Chiron element, but it's the teacher. So it's like coming here does teach us something, right? That's why Chiron rules Virgo, immutable Earth, So I think that this Monday can definitely be an interesting one. It can, of course, provide us with a lot of growth and expansion, but I think will be challenging, especially for people that lack self-esteem. I think that will be really tough, or relationships that are already on the edge and are kind of weak. That Chiron there with the Venus and triggering this whole thing, I think that it can be easy to exploit weaknesses in relationships, or for them to be exploited, or for them to be kind of poked at. So just something to be on the lookout for, to be careful of, if you will. But then, of course, we shift into the full moon lunar eclipse. Of course, I do have that right here, actually. Now, this is happening at 10:34 10:34 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 25 degrees here. Now, mind you, that moon also throughout the day did oppose Mercury, did conjunct Saturn, and it did square Jupiter Also quincunx Venus, all the way leading up to this full moon lunar eclipse here at 25 degrees. Now, this is that moment right here. Like this is, it feels like a dream. Because honestly, I feel like in this image, it's more like a dream. That's why I think that they're all kind of looking towards the sun. It's kind of weird, but it's like he's like, I can either turn into this version of myself, or I can turn into that version of myself. Both versions exist within you. This also can represent itself as actual opposition, where you may find yourself on one side or the other. And I think even shit, and this can deal with a lot of different things. And like I said, I wouldn't say that either side is 100% right or 100% wrong or per se. I think it really depends upon the context of it. So this can also be dealing with this can deal with things in the political sense. It's like, are you going to go left? Are you going to go right? Are you going to go up the middle? Are you going to are you going to be a Coke person? Or are you going to be a Pepsi person? I know it's a dumb example, but it's just what came to mind, right? Are you going to... What are other things that are kind of opposed to each other? Are you going to... Shoot, did you get your chocolate in my peanut butter, or did you get your peanut butter in my chocolate? Like, that's... I know that sounds very dumb and weird and out there, but it's also Pisces, so it doesn't have to make sense, right? So that's kind of what this moment is. And we do kind of make our decision, with this energy, right? But look at all the oppositions here. The moon and the sun. Hold on. You have the moon and the sun. 25 degrees. All right. You have Uranus in the part of fortune. Like, no matter where you are in the world, it's going to calculate to this. It's crazy. 27, right? We also have Venus and Chiron. Yes, it's not exact, but they are effectively opposing each other. And you also have Saturn and Mercury opposing each other. There's oppositions all over this damn chart. So there's a lot going on here, right? So on one side, I would say you have... If we're looking at all the oppositions, I would say on one side you have... I don't even know where the cutoff would be. Jupiter, Uranus, Chiron, Neptune, Saturn. And then you have Mercury, Sun, Venus, part of... I don't know where the cutoff would be here. I don't know where it would be. Maybe it's right here. Maybe that's like the singularity, like the quantum point is. The Uranus part of fortune part is kind of like cutting everything off. But you can see all these oppositions just building up on this lunar eclipse. Now, I want to read to you all the Sabian... Uh-oh, not that. I want to read... Not on the outro yet. We're not... This video is not done yet. I want to read for you guys the Sabian symbol for this. Let's see. Let's see what I can do. Get here. Okay. Oh, let me do that one more time. Let's see. Properties. Boom. Okay, cool. I made myself a little bit smaller so you guys can actually read it. There we go. Okay. What's interesting about this Sabian symbol is that it talks about a new moon. That's why initially when I was making this image, I wanted it to be two people fighting each other. But now I think it's interesting I kind of wanted to be two people like fighting each other, like almost like two factions. But then I felt like, no, I think this is much more on the subconscious level. I feel like this is much more like on the dream level. I feel like this is much more internal. So there's almost like a split decision within yourself of like, I guess, which way you're going to go or which way you're going to embrace. But let me read this for you guys. All right. So a new moon reveals that it's time for people to go ahead with their different projects, right? This shows being able to see or to accept when it's time for people to move on or to part from each other. They need to go ahead with their different projects. Their focus has changed and quite possibly they parted ways. There's a picture here of new beginnings, People will have their own response to situations. Not everyone will react in the same way. It can be a good idea to direct some energy into your desires or projects at the time of the new moon. This is a full moon lunar eclipse. Light a candle and state your intentions with honesty and love. Diversifying, applying talent to new directions, people splitting up and splitting off. That's very eclipse like. Eclipse energy cuts energy off. New moon, new opportunities and potentials, divorces, new jobs, directions and destinies, new eras. Not giving emotional support, feeling split off and alone, the fear and loathing of separation, failing relationships, overthrowing the old too quickly, fickleness. Now, because this is a full moon and this was the Sabian symbol, I almost feel like it's like the reverse. You know what I'm saying? I almost feel like it's like the opposite of this. So there is an element of going your own way, but I think there's also an element of coming together, right? And I also feel like because it's a full moon, there is a big release point and a cutoff. Or like people are going to probably, I'm not gonna lie, like with this sort of energy, especially with Venus, and people are probably going to cut people off. Um, this is a moment like you may see a lot more of that with this, especially with all the oppositions that are happening. People are going to be cutting people out of their lives left and right. I will see that you're probably going to see that a lot more. You're going to be seeing people jump ship, people jumping onto ships. Would not be surprised, especially in the spiritual community, people jumping ship off the spiritual community. So, like, people leaving astrology, leaving tarot, leaving angel numbers, leaving numerology, leaving meditation, and going into the church. But then you're also going to see people in the church looking for answers, and they're going to go into spirituality. You're going to see, from a political aspect, even more of a divide, because it does say people will have their own response to situations. Not everyone will react in the same way. What is the situation? What's going to happen? I mean, it's a lunar eclipse, so there's bound to be some type of event that happens here, right? It could be a good idea to direct some energy into your desires or projects at the time of the new moon. So I think the positive thing about this is to try, the best way to kind of go about it is to not get totally wrapped up in the world drama surrounding this, and to actually, what is something that you've been wanting to work on, or that you have been working on. This is a good time to start those projects, if you will. Like I said, this is a full moon lunar eclipse, so this could be an opportunity for us to release the fear and the desire and the anxiety of starting something new, going somewhere new, doing this new project, going in that direction. I think that's the other part of this as well, because Pisces energy very much so does rule anxiety. Like, it's especially Mercury in Pisces. So it's like, there's an element here where it's like, this can be an opportunity for us to relieve ourselves of that anxiety, that apprehension of the unknown. Because that's the thing about Pisces. It's the unknown. It's the unseen. It's the hidden. It's the 12th house. So, there could be some fears surrounding all that can finally be let go of. Some misconceptions, some things that, we once thought were, it's kind of like how people once thought like a headache was like demons in your head. Maybe it is. Maybe it actually is that. But like at one point people thought that was the case. I'm like, no, it's just increased blood flow in your head. Now we know what it actually is, right? So it's like that thing that made you anxious or apprehensive, you can be like, you might have associated it with something. Turns out it might be something definitely different. Or you find a way to look at it in a new light, and you no longer allow that thing to take over you and hold you from the inside. So I think that this is going to be a very powerful full moon lunar eclipse. It does say divorces, new jobs, directions, and destinies. So it's like I said, there's an element of coming together and an element of splitting apart. So I think we will see divorces, split ups. We'll also see mergers. We'll see people coming together. We'll probably see businesses merge as well. maybe some large acquisitions like within business, like maybe like one business taking over like another smaller business, and like large acquisitions. We may see some of that sort of stuff come up. Um, I people being very very honest with each other, very very honest about their feelings within relationships, but be them romantic, friends, platonic, family, colleagues. And I think it's going to be like you kind of make that decision in that moment whether or not you're going to stick with that individual or that situation, or whether you're not. So I think this is a massive moment that's going to determine how the next several months go, right? Because this is a full moon lunar eclipse, so all this energy is going to be with us for a full month until it gets cut off by the next full moon. But like I said, because it is an eclipse, it's not your standard full moon. The energy will last with us even longer. We got to get to the new moon in Pisces, and then we got to get to the full moon and the next full moon in Pisces, which will happen next year when the sun's in Virgo, right? So that's pretty much this week. So I'm actually kind of surprised to how quick I went through this, but like I said, I think this is a week where we could potentially like overcomplicate it, but I don't think it's a very complicated week. I don't think it's a very complicated week, but there may be a tendency to complicate things. So, of course, I will definitely go more in depth about that full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces for that particular horoscope. But hopefully that helps you guys out, gives you some insight into the week and how you can navigate it, or at the very least, just be empowered to know what's going on. So, well, let's go ahead and get into the cards, see what the cards have to say for everybody, and then we will hightail it out of here. But I appreciate you all joining me in this week's Cosmic Convergence weekly astrological horoscope. Give this one more. All right, let's see what we got for this week. I have the Queen of Pentacles in reverse. Queen of Pentacles in reverse. This is, maybe we don't feel like we are in the most ideal spot to grow. This Queen of Pentacles, she is the tree, right? She actually is the tree in this card. With it being in reverse, this could be a feeling like maybe we're not being planted in the best soil. Maybe we're not necessarily in the best place. Maybe this tree is a little bit older. Maybe it's not getting the best sun. I do think it's interesting that there's like a sun right above her too. So with it being in reverse, maybe we're feeling like, there are other people or other situations in our way and blocking us from actually getting that sun that we feel like we need. I also have the Queen of Swords in reverse too. This also can just be dealing with two powerful individuals, but they're going to be coming more from and it's interesting too because it's earth and air. So it's more logical, if you will. It seems more logical, much more earth. The Queen of Swords is definitely, I think like mentally and stuff like that, things are going to be a little bit more discombobulated. We may not necessarily have all the facts this week, so it may be a good idea to kind of just hold off on making those major decisions until after the freaking lunar eclipse. But I think with anytime that you have an eclipse, there's an element of fate that comes in, and faith, I would say as well. But there's an element of fate that comes in with those eclipses. I do also have the Eight of Swords. Yeah, Eight of Swords definitely is speaking to feeling like you're restricted, feeling like you can't move forward, and, kind of having the blinders on a little bit. It could also be, and I think with this one's interesting because you do have a swan that's like in thorns, you have the swords there, but then you have that hummingbird. And the hummingbird right there, I think, is a reminder that, you know what, in order to uplift ourselves out of these sort of situations where we may feel like we're bound and stuck, that instead of doubling down on the heavy emotion of that, we need to learn how to become lighter and brighter like the hummingbird. You know, that's the kind of the lesson with this particular card, the way that it depicts the Eight of Swords, is that yeah, the swan is a beautiful creature, absolutely, but it's also restricted by these thorns, and of course these swords here. Not to mention there are freaking, looks like skeletons on the ground next to the swan, right? But the way that we get out of it is by learning how to be lighter and brighter and, hum like the hummingbird. There's an element where we have to, that's how we're going to uplift ourselves out of these situations. I actually kind of want to, let's see, because I have that animal oracle deck, and and there's the hummingbird, and something's just calling me to pull that card out. Now, in my opinion, the hummingbird is one of the totem animals of Taurus energy. But I kind of want to I'm just being called, just trust my intuition, to go to the hummingbird here. Interesting. Turn away from infidelity so that love may blossom. That's kind of wild, honestly. Turn away from infidelity so that love may blossom. So, infidelity here doesn't necessarily mean, definitely can mean in relationships, but I think it's saying turn away from cheating yourself out of something. It doesn't necessarily mean cheating on someone, although it definitely could, but it's saying, like, do not cheat yourself out of loving yourself. Do not cheat yourself out of a good opportunity. Do not rob yourself of that. That way, you can allow this love to blossom, if you will. You can allow for this growth to happen, and I think that's really what's coming down to it in this card, is that, like, those heavier emotions, those anxieties, those worries, those fears and stuff like that, they are definitely teaching us something, right? But it's about, like, we need to learn how to turn away from restricting ourselves and holding ourselves up just because we're afraid, just because we're worried. Don't cheat yourself out of this. Become lighter, become brighter, be like the hummingbird, so that love can flourish. Like the blossoms, the flowers, and everything like that, so it can flourish, right? That's really what it comes down to. Draw a few more cards. I also have the Seven of Swords in reverse. This is actually very positive because the Seven of Swords does speak to, feeling like you're being robbed or stolen from, but this is in reverse. So this is, if anyone's going to rob or steal from you, it is going to be yourself. So I literally just been saying, like, the infidelity it doesn't necessarily mean cheating on someone physically. If you're in a relationship, it could mean that, so don't do that, right? But this is also about, you're only going to be taking from yourself. It's like a return to sender kind of deal. You think that you're taking from somebody. You think that you're getting up with someone. You think you're one-upping someone. Really, you're just taking from yourself, right? And that's not going to give you the results or the outcome that you wanted to. I also have the Two of Cups in reverse. So a lot of times I get a lot of these reversal cards. Especially since most of these cards are reverse, and the only one that's upright is the Eight of Swords. I think it's kind of interesting. But Two of Cups, can you emotionally connect with someone, get on the same page with somebody? I think that's really what it comes down to as far as that goes. Final card I have is the Star card in reverse. And honestly, because I have all these reversal cards, I'm probably going to read them upright because it just kind of lets me know that the energy is actually very, very simple. The energy is actually very, very simple because we have 5 cards reversed and only one that is upright. And the card that's upright is the card that does complicate things. It is the card that holds us back, that restricts us, that you're keeping the blinders on and you're not giving yourself an opportunity to even make it out of that situation. You're just wallowing in that energy. you're just wallowing in it. It's like you're not looking for a solution. The Star card is here to provide that solution. It's here to provide that guidance, if you will. The Two of Cups is here to provide that emotional connection. Queen of Pentacles is here to provide that, that self-confidence and that self-reliance. Queen of Swords is here to provide that ingenuity, that innovative thinking. And even the Seven of Swords upright isn't necessarily bad in all this context. It's not necessarily bad in all this context. Yeah, it could definitely mean, taking or stealing or being secretive or something like that. But I think this is about, I think in the context of all this, I think it's about, maybe being a little bit more particular about what you put your energy into. That's kind of the way I'm reading this Seven of Swords upright. If it was upright and the Eight of Swords was reversed and all the other cards were upright, I'm seeing it as like, be particular about who you give your energy to. Be discerning about who you give your energy to. There's nothing wrong with that. If you give your energy to too many people, whatever like that, it gives them an opportunity to take advantage of you, to like to screw you over. But if you're a little bit more particular about it, then you can, there's less opportunity for that to happen. So I think it's about the discernment here as well. So definitely some interesting cards as far as that goes. Let's get one more card with the Sacred Geometry card, and then we will get out of here for this weekly astrological horoscope. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. Compassion. Compassion. The frequency of compassion supports our ability to stand by others without judgment and be the divine mediator between heaven and earth, spirit and matter, so that unconditional love can flow from source through our heart and into the world. I love that. Maybe this is not about picking sides. Maybe this is about having unconditional love for both of these aspects of ourselves. Maybe we don't have to make the split decision. Maybe there are aspects of both sides that we need to integrate. Maybe we need to find the synthesis of these two sides. And just like what you're going to see in the world with different factions coming against each other and people splitting off, I think this is about allowing people to live their journey and to have their experience and to be that compassionate soul and bridge those gaps where people think that they cannot relate to each other and find common ground. You can show them that you in fact are that common ground. You exist and you are wanting people to live their journeys and to what it is that makes them happy and gives their life purpose and legitimately makes them a better person. Allow them to do that. So you are the bridge. So maybe there isn't not necessarily a split decision here, maybe just the enticement of a split decision. I think the best way to go is the middle path. That's going to do it for your astrological horoscope for this week, September 11th through September 17th of 2024. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I trust that this message will assist you on your journey this week. Y'all take care, stay blessed, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all on the next video. Peace.